watching live TV, and suddenly the entire show stops. That's exactly what happened on The View when Joy Behar and country star Jelly Roll got into one of the most intense, unexpected clashes the show has ever seen. Voices rose, emotions snapped, and for the first time in months, Joy Behar slammed the brakes on the live broadcast. What happened next left the audience frozen, the co-hosts scrambling, and the internet in total meltdown. This is the moment everything went off the rails. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. Chaos. That's the only word viewers repeated over and over again to describe what happened live on The View that morning, a moment that exploded faster than anyone could process. Everything began smoothly, just like any typical episode. The studio lights were bright, the audience was energized, and the co-hosts were easing into their usual back-and-forth banter. Cameras glided across the stage as the hosts joked, laughed, and welcomed viewers to another day on the show. Nothing, absolutely nothing, hinted at the storm that was about to hit. Then, the doors opened and country music star Jelly Roll walked onto the stage. The audience erupted into cheers. Some people stood, others whistled loudly. Jelly Roll, with his familiar humble smile and gentle presence, waved to the crowd and took his seat at the table. He wasn't there for controversy. He wasn't there for drama. He was there to talk about his new album, his painful but inspiring journey through addiction, and the mission he had embraced, helping young people who felt lost just like he once did. The mood was warm. Jelly Roll spoke openly about his past, and the co-hosts listened attentively. Joy Behar even cracked a small joke at one point, and Jelly Roll laughed along with her. Everything felt easy, comfortable, human. But then the tone shifted. Joy leaned forward, paused for a moment, and asked the question that changed the entire energy of the room. Do you ever worry that people see you as a warning rather than a role model? It wasn't rude. It wasn't loud. It wasn't meant to be an attack. But the words cut deeper than Joy expected. As soon as the question left her lips, something changed. Instantly. Jelly Roll's expression tightened. The open, relaxed smile faded. In its place appeared confusion, then hurt, then something close to disappointment. The atmosphere in the studio dropped like a stone. You could almost hear the breath being sucked from the audience. Murmurs rippled quietly through the room. Several audience members shifted uncomfortably, and the co-hosts exchanged quick glances, surprised by the sudden tension. Joy Behar noticed the shift too. She saw Jelly Roll's reaction, the stiffness spreading across the table, and tried to move forward as if nothing had happened, but the moment had already taken hold. Because the question may not have been harsh, but it struck a nerve that Jelly Roll carried deep within him, one shaped by years of struggle, failure, rebuilding, and fighting for self-worth. For a few seconds, everything hung in the air. Jelly Roll didn't answer right away. He simply stared at the table, gathering his thoughts, letting the weight of the comment wash over him. And that silence, that heavy, emotional, electrifying silence, made the entire situation even more intense. What began as a friendly interview was now veering into dangerous emotional territory. The audience leaned in. The co-hosts hesitated. Joy attempted to soften her tone, but the spark had already been lit. The shift was so sudden that viewers later said they could feel the tension through their screens. This wasn't the kind of disagreement television producers can predict. This wasn't scripted drama. This was raw, real, and unfolding live in front of millions. Joy Behar had asked a question she thought was tough but fair. But Jelly Roll heard something far deeper, a reminder of the wounds he had worked so hard to heal. And in that moment, the entire show pivoted. A simple discussion turned into a confrontation. A light interview became one of the most unforgettable, emotionally charged moments in The View's history. And it was only just beginning. The conversation had started on a hopeful note. Joy Behar asked Jelly Roll about the incredible transformation he had made in his life, how he went from a troubled, painful past to becoming a Grammy-nominated artist loved by millions. Jelly Roll spoke openly, almost proudly, about the journey that shaped him. He talked about addiction, redemption, and the responsibility he now carried to inspire young people who felt trapped just like he once did. Everything felt heartfelt. Everything felt respectful. But then Joy leaned back in her chair, narrowed her eyes slightly, and delivered the question that would ignite the moment everyone would remember. Do you ever worry people see you as a role model or a warning? It was just 12 words. But those 12 words detonated like thunder in a silent room. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The audience gasped quietly, a wave of discomfort rippling through the studio. Even the co-hosts, who were trained to keep straight faces through any awkward moment, froze. Their smiles faded. Their posture stiffened. It was clear that the question had crossed into sensitive territory. Jelly Roll leaned forward slowly, eyebrows raised, caught completely off guard. He wasn't furious. He wasn't ready to lash out. But he was undeniably, visibly hurt. Jelly Roll is the kind of person who wears his emotions openly, and this moment was no exception. His eyes softened in a way that suggested the question touched not only his career, but his past, his trauma, and his sense of identity. He took a breath, steady but heavy, and responded, "Joy, I don't mind being a role model, but I'll never let anyone use my past as a punchline." The audience erupted into applause, loud, supportive, instantaneous. People in the studio nodded in approval. Some even shouted encouragement. They knew how much Jelly Roll had overcome. They understood that his past wasn't a joke, it was survival. But Joy Behar wasn't finished. She quickly raised her hands and insisted, almost defensively, "I'm not mocking you at all. This is just a tough question. That's what we do here." Her voice had an edge to it, sharp enough to cut the tension instead of easing it. She wanted to clarify her intentions, but her tone did the opposite. It only poured fuel onto the already growing flames. Jelly Roll straightened his back. The gentle humility he started the interview with was still there, but now it was mixed with strength, conviction, and a readiness to stand up for himself. And so he pushed back again, this time with more force in his voice. "Tough questions are fine, but there's tough, and then there's disrespectful. And I know the difference." The room went silent again, even heavier than before. You could feel the electricity in the air, sharp, buzzing, unpredictable. Producers behind the cameras exchanged frantic looks. They had certainly not planned for this. Co-hosts tried to interject, mouths opening and closing as they searched for a way to calm the situation, but the energy at the table was too strong, too raw, too charged. Joy tried to defend her comment, once more. Jelly Roll countered. Joy clarified. Jelly Roll clarified even harder. Within seconds, the gentle interview had transformed into a heated verbal clash. A clash no one expected. A clash no producer rehearsed for. A clash no viewer would ever forget. What made it even more shocking was how real it felt. This wasn't staged. This wasn't scripted drama for ratings. These were genuine emotions colliding live on national television. Millions of people at home would later replay this moment again and again, analyzing who was right, who was wrong, and how a single question spiraled into one of the most intense exchanges The View had seen all year. And the craziest part? The tension was only beginning. This was the moment everything changed, the instant where a conversation that began politely, almost warmly, turned into a full-blown confrontation that no one in the studio, or at home, could ignore. Jelly Roll took a deep breath, leaned forward slightly, and locked eyes with Joy Behar. There was a calmness in his tone, but behind it, a steel-like intensity. Every word he was about to speak carried the weight of his past, his struggles, and his mission to help others. The studio went quiet, almost reverent, as if everyone instinctively knew that something important and raw was about to happen. "I've spent years trying to help people who grew up like I did," Jelly Roll began, his voice steady, yet powerful. "If being honest about my pain makes someone feel less alone, then I'll take that responsibility every day." The audience erupted. Applause filled the studio. Cheers rang out, and some viewers even stood in admiration. It was a moment of pure authenticity. A celebrity not hiding behind a scripted answer, but openly standing by his life story and the lessons he wanted to share. But Joy Behar, never one to back down, leaned forward and responded sharply, her voice measured but firm. "I'm not attacking you. This is The View. We ask hard things." Her words, though meant to defend her intentions, only added tension to the room. Jelly Roll nodded, acknowledging her statement, but the frustration in his eyes and the slight quiver in his voice spoke volumes. This wasn't just about a hard question. "And I'll always answer with honesty," he replied, his tone calm but pointed. "But there's a difference between a hard question and a question that hits someone where it hurts." That line struck the audience like lightning. The energy in the room became palpable, thick, electric, almost suffocating. You could feel the tension pressing down on the studio lights, bouncing off the cameras, and radiating into every corner of the set. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. It was raw emotion, clashing perspectives, and unfiltered reality playing out live for millions to witness. Sunny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg, and Sarah Haynes exchanged glances and quickly tried to interject, attempting to defuse the situation and steer the conversation back to safer territory. But neither Joy nor Jelly Roll was willing to give ground. Their focus was absolute. Their emotions were real. Their words mattered. For a few minutes, the verbal sparring continued, subtle yet intense. Every pause, every gesture, every glance communicated volumes. The cameras captured it all: the flared nostrils, the quick intake of breath, the faint tightening of fists. It was television at its rawest, most unfiltered, and undeniably compelling. And then, the moment that would be replayed across social media platforms countless times, the moment that would define this episode forever, arrived. Joy Behar raised her hand mid-sentence and said, with a mixture of authority and urgency, "Hold on, stop. We need to reset here." The entire studio went silent. Even the usually composed co-hosts froze. The audience gasped. The air was thick with disbelief and anticipation. This was live television. This was real. And for the first time in months, The View had been halted mid-episode. Joy looked directly at the cameras, her voice measured but serious. "This is live television. Things get heated. But let's be clear, we are not here to tear anyone down." Jelly Roll, still composed but clearly impacted, nodded in acknowledgement, responding politely but firmly. "I'm all for tough conversations. But I've lived through enough fire. I don't need more flames thrown at me." The room remained tense. The co-hosts, the crew, and the audience all felt the weight of the moment. It was no longer about a celebrity interview. It was about respect, boundaries, and the power of words. For viewers at home, this was more than just a heated exchange. It was a live lesson in standing up for yourself, managing conflict, and witnessing raw, unscripted emotion unfold in real time. And just like that, what started as a typical episode of The View became one of the most talked about, replayed, and analyzed moments in recent television history, a clash that nobody saw coming, yet everyone would remember. The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point. Every word exchanged between Joy Behar and Jelly Roll had added fuel to the fire. The air felt thick, almost heavy, charged with raw emotion that neither the co-hosts nor the audience could ignore. It was one of those rare television moments where you could almost feel the energy vibrating through the cameras, the microphones, and even the lights. Joy Behar, sensing the argument was completely spinning out of control, suddenly raised her hand. Her eyes were steady, her voice firm yet calm as she addressed the room. "Hold on, stop. We need to reset here." The studio went silent. Dead silent. Even Jelly Roll leaned back slightly, clearly stunned. For a man used to the pressures of fame, the glare of the spotlight, and intense scrutiny, this was something entirely unexpected. The live show itself had been halted in the middle of an exchange. Every eye in the room was on Joy, waiting for what would happen next. Joy took a slow, deliberate breath, then turned her gaze to the camera, speaking directly to the millions of viewers at home. "This is live television. Things get heated. But let's be clear. We're not here to tear anyone down. Her words were measured, professional, and authoritative. Some audience members reacted immediately, applauding her attempt to regain control. Others stayed silent, wide-eyed, still processing the intensity of what they had just witnessed. This was television at its rawest, a moment unscripted, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Jelly Roll, still visibly affected, nodded politely but did not retreat. Instead, he chose to speak, his voice calm yet firm, carrying the weight of his experiences. "I'm all for tough conversations, Joy, but I've lived through enough fire. I don't need more flames thrown at me." The words hit hard. They resonated through the studio and, later, through screens across the nation. The audience gasped audibly. Many leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the sincerity and vulnerability in Jelly Roll's voice. Social media clips of this exact moment would later go viral, showing fans praising him for standing up with dignity and courage. Some viewers expressed shock at the tension, while others admired the way he handled such a volatile exchange without losing his composure. Even after Joy attempted to move the conversation into safer territory, the emotional weight in the room had already shifted. Something unspoken lingered in the air, a tension that could not be undone by a change in topic. The co-hosts exchanged subtle glances, aware that they had witnessed a historic moment on live television. The energy at the table, once casual and light, had transformed into something electric, emotional, and unforgettable. The segment eventually wrapped up, but the impact was far from over. Clips of the heated exchange and the dramatic pause circulated immediately across TikTok, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Viewers debated who was right, who was in the wrong, and who handled the situation with the most grace. Hashtags like hashtag Team Jelly Roll, hashtag Joy Went Too Far, and hashtag Live TV Drama trended within hours. This was not just another interview. This was a moment that exposed the delicate balance between tough questioning and personal respect. It highlighted the vulnerability of celebrities who carry scars from their past and the responsibility of hosts to navigate those conversations carefully. For millions of viewers, it became a defining moment in The View's history, a rare example of live television where tension, raw emotion, and integrity collided in a way that was impossible to forget. What began as a simple interview had turned into a powerful lesson on boundaries, respect, and the unpredictable nature of live broadcasts. And as the internet lit up, one thing became clear. No one would be able to stop talking about this moment for days, maybe even weeks. The echoes of that dramatic pause and Jelly Roll's unwavering response would resonate far beyond the studio walls. The moment the episode ended, the clip didn't just linger on television, it erupted across the internet like wildfire. TikTok, YouTube, X, Instagram, and every social media platform were instantly flooded with the video. Within minutes, millions of viewers were replaying the confrontation between Joy Behar and Jelly Roll, analyzing every word, every pause, every facial expression. Jelly Roll had remained calm, collected, and unshakable, yet every word he spoke carried the weight of his personal journey. Fans were quick to notice his vulnerability, his honesty, and the quiet strength in his voice. Many commented on how rare it was to see a celebrity respond with such composed authenticity in a moment charged with tension. Country music fans and even casual viewers rallied behind him, praising his courage and calling him a role model not just for his music, but for the way he handled conflict with dignity. Hashtags exploded across social media. Hashtag Team Jelly Roll. Hashtag Joy Went Too Far. Hashtag The View Drama. But the reactions weren't one-sided. There were viewers who came to Joy Behar's defense, arguing that she was simply doing her job, asking tough questions, challenging her guest, and keeping the conversation engaging for viewers. They said that live television is about honesty, and sometimes questions are meant to probe deeper, even if they touch on sensitive territory. Entertainment outlets quickly weighed in. Blogs and news sites called the exchange the tensest live moment The View has had all year, while commentators praised Jelly Roll's unscripted speech as powerful, raw, and authentic. Articles highlighted that the incident was more than just drama. It was a lesson about respect, emotional boundaries, and the human side of celebrities who are often expected to always have it together. Amid all the commentary, one thing became undeniably clear. This was not just television entertainment. This was a real conversation about pain, growth, and the fine line between tough questioning and personal attack. It forced viewers to reflect on their own assumptions, their own judgments, and the power words carry, both spoken and implied. Later, Jelly Roll posted a thoughtful message on his social media, addressing the incident directly. No hard feelings. I stand by what I said. If my story helped someone today, then it was worth it. His words resonated with fans worldwide, many of whom praised him for speaking his truth while remaining respectful and composed, even under immense pressure. Joy Behar also addressed the moment on the next episode of The View. Things get heated. It happens. We move on. While her statement was professional, many viewers remained skeptical, unsure if anyone was truly moving on. The debate continued across comment sections, threads, and video responses as people picked apart every nuance of the exchange. What made this moment extraordinary was that it reminded audiences how powerful live television can be. A single question, a measured response, and a pause in the broadcast had captured global attention. It demonstrated that words, emotions, and intentions, even in a controlled studio setting, can ripple far beyond a room in which they occur. For many viewers, this was no ordinary interview. It was a lesson in empathy, accountability, and standing firm when confronted with misunderstanding or criticism. It showed the unpredictability of live TV, where no script can prepare you for raw, authentic human emotion. By the end of the day, clips had millions of views, debates raged online, and discussions about the boundaries of questioning on live television filled timelines everywhere. For countless people, this was the most unforgettable episode of The View in years, a moment that would be replayed, remembered, and analyzed for a long time to come. It wasn't just a celebrity interview gone wrong. It was a powerful reminder that live television can ignite emotions, challenge assumptions, and spark conversations that matter far beyond the screen.